26 minutes past 8, and we continue with our program this morning on the News and Views Salam Media platform. Uh, the Chief Justice of South Africa has finally broken his silence regarding the comments that he made in a webinar hosted by the Jerusalem Post a couple of days ago. And quoted in the IOL news website, the Chief Justice Mogoeng has broken his silence after growing calls for him to apologize. He made comments, obviously, in support of Israel. And he says, to everybody that is angry about my remarks and the position I take, ask God. He is the God who listens. He is the God who speaks. I will never hate. I will never say I hate anybody or any nation. I will never. I love everybody. I love Israel. I love the Jews. I love the Palestinians. I love everybody. I love every nation. However, he also said that I will never, even if 50 million people can march every day for the next 10 years, for me to retract or apologize for what I say, I will not do it. I'm now joined online by Mr. Alan Horwitz. He is the spokesperson for the South African Jews for a Free Palestine. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the program.
Morning to everyone.
All right, so what was the SAJFP's initial response to the comments that were made by the Chief Justice Mogoeng during the Jerusalem Post webinar?
Mm. Our response was quite simple, that it was one based on ignorance of the biblical texts that the Chief Justice quoted, and that as a representative of our judiciary, guardian of our Bill of Rights, he displayed almost a contempt for the ongoing tragedy that has befallen the Palestinian people. To equate the Bible written, 3,000 years ago, and what happened with an ancient tribe, the Israelites, in Canaan, in that part of the world, to what's been going on for the last 120 years of Palestinian dispossession by Jewish nationalism, is, of course, a travesty. Now, we would hope that the Chief Justice would love everyone. I take that in the Christian sense of love thy neighbor, do unto others as you would them do unto you. Those are universal religious and moral precepts. But when you apply them in a blind way to an apartheid state like Israel, then you are actually defying and undermining your own moral position and your own faith. Now, we as Jewish South Africans, many of us of my generation, also involved in the anti-apartheid struggle, we know that international support and solidarity is critical. It's not the only issue, and it's never the most important either, because unless the people themselves rise up and confront their oppression, whether it's an ethnic group, a religious group, or a gender group, you can't achieve liberation. Liberation must come primarily from inside those who are oppressed. But the support that we can give people is absolutely necessary. Also, for those of us who happen to be by an accident of birth, as I was born with a white skin, or I was born into the Jewish tribe, those are not factors that I had control over. What I do have control over is my relationship with the world as I grow to maturity. So we respect the fact that the Chief Justice is a believing Christian, but he has perverted the essence of Christianity. And in so doing, he has brought himself and his views into conflict with South Africa's Bill of Rights, our constitution, which is based on universal precepts of equality and, of course, of justice. And he is a Chief Justice. So there's a very serious paradox there, that a Chief Justice does not stand for justice. So his latest comments defying those who support the rights of Palestinians and equally quote the rights of Israelis, but there's no right to oppress anyone. I mean, these are fundamental issues. So for us, we were in shock that someone of his stature and importance in our society could lose his way, so to speak, and now to compound that problem, refuses to review what he actually stated. Now, in our press statement, we initially pointed out that the Chief Justice was hosted by a very right-wing, reactionary Israeli newspaper, the Jerusalem Post, which ironically has quite a number of Jewish South Africans working for it. I mean, they take the old spirit of apartheid South Africa with them, which we as Jewish South Africans are completely opposed to. And in addition to that, and one is very distressed and ashamed to say that the Orthodox Chief Rabbi of South Africa, Warren Goldstein, also is a travesty of Jewish and universal ethics. He has consistently supported the extreme right-wing Zionist view on Israel, which is the view advanced by the South African Zionist Federation and the Board of Jewish Deputies. Unfortunately, the Jewish establishment is completely uncritical of Israel, will never admit that Israel has violated endless numbers of international resolutions, and of course, the International Court, Criminal Court, is now probing Israeli war crimes in Gaza and elsewhere, and they have joined this chorus of condemnation for this international court. And that also involves the Chief Justice. So in short, we find those who represent organized, well, let's say our Chief Justice does not represent the Christian church, but he is a powerful spokesperson for the Christian faith. And of course, the Chief Rabbi as well. That both of them have perverted the essence of their own religions in blindly supporting apartheid Israel. So yeah,
Now,
that is our position.
Mr. Holtz, if I can come in there quickly, the timing of this particular webinar as well, and it comes on the eve of the annexation of Palestinian lands in the West Bank once again. What is the significance, if any, in this particular situation?
Well, you've led me into a very interesting point, because the timing is also critical. On the eve of a further, let's say, theft of Palestinian land, the Jerusalem Post set up this supposed discussion about apartheid of the heart, meaning that on a personal level we should not oppress or exploit others, which of course we would support. However, the timing on the eve of this latest confiscation of 30% of the West Bank, which does, I mean, not that we support Oslo, because we believe the Oslo Agreement was actually a trap for the Palestinian people, which their representatives walked into. But that's another story. The issue here is that another 30% of the West Bank, which would mean that Palestinians will barely, as it were, have a national patrimony of 15% of historic Palestine, is about to be swallowed. So clearly this was to support the annexation that they called the Chief Justice and the Chief Rabbi. So it wasn't accidental. The timing also has to be seen as something very significant. Now, to go back to the Chief Rabbi, I mean, within the Jewish community, we have different religious streams, and he represents the most conservative and the most patriarchal aspect of Judaism, a backward version of Judaism, a ghetto version of Judaism. And we are largely secular Jews, but we are not opposed to religious beliefs or practices. So they got together two people to whitewash what Israel is about to do. And so that makes it doubly reprehensible.
Mr. Howitz, if you can just perhaps enlighten us and give us some understanding into the linkages and relationships between, these right-wing evangelical Christian groups and the Zionist cause out there. How are the two linked, and what is the basis of that linkage?
Yes, no, that's another very interesting point, because religious Zionism, Christian religious Zionism, has a long history. In fact, Lord Balfour, the notorious Balfour Declaration of 1917, where the British Empire granted the Zionist movement the prospect of a Jewish home in Palestine, although at the same time they did say that all peoples in Palestine's rights should be respected, which of course has not been the case. But having said that, today, the evangelical Christian movement, which has as its base primarily the United States, but also Brazil, is now a very big component of that global movement. Bolsonaro, the new president of Brazil, has publicly supported this movement. And of course, Trump, Mr. President Trump, is a very strong supporter of that movement. Not that he himself, I believe, is a practicing evangelical, but he goes through the motions because that's a very important part of his support base. And in order to please that support base, he pushed through the recognition of Israeli sovereignty over the whole of Jerusalem. He supported the annexation of the Golan Heights, taken from Syria, and he is now given the green light for further annexations in the West Bank and the breaking up of the West Bank, the balkanization of the West Bank into small little islands of Palestinian control. And he envisages that that will become a viable Palestinian state, which is, of course, ridiculous. That we have an evangelical Christian movement supporting the complete dispossession and cultural genocide of the Palestinian people. Now, the Christian world, as we know, the Muslim world, the Jewish world, are fragmented. There isn't one single authority. I mean, human nature, there are differences of opinion, there are different interpretations. But the evangelical church in the last 30 years has become a major force in world politics. I might also add the Philippines. The Philippines, too, is a society where they have a grip on political power through a president, Duarte, who is also known to be an extreme right-winger and an aggressive leader. So the evangelical church, connected with the messianic view that the second coming of Christ, the Messiah, will only take place after Armageddon. I think you know the myth. There will be a war of Gog and Magog and so forth. And afterwards, that will usher in an era of peace and plenty for all human beings, which of course seems a bit farcical. How can war bring peace? At the same time, the evangelical church is banned in Israel. They tried to set up a TV station which has now been dismantled. So the Zionist movement uses the evangelicals for their own purposes and at the same time tries to control Christian missionaries. It's a very paradoxical situation. We can see that it has nothing to do with ethical standards or advancing love and harmony, those glorious concepts in practical human relations. I mean, the Israeli-Palestinian issue has been festering for so long, and it seems so simple and straightforward. Respect human rights, respect national rights, have a referendum, have a process. I mean, you can't just walk in and take another people's land, right? We know through history there's going to be resistance. And now our Chief Justice is on the side of the oppressor. He has made that statement quite clearly. And one would expect that the Christian world also would stand up and make known its views.
Yes, and we have seen it through the SACC, the South African Council of Churches. Mr. Alan Hurwitz of the South African Jews for a Free Palestine. We thank you so much for your time this morning and for sharing that information with us. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.